You know, most of us think a haunting is just a cold spot in the hallway, a flickering light, maybe a whisper in the dark, something you can almost explain away. But what I'm about to tell you, this isn't that kind of story. This is a story about a curse so specific, so brutal, it defies all reason. It's about an apartment building right here in the heart of America, in a quiet, rain-soaked city in the Pacific Northwest we'll call Portsborough, Oregon. A building where the past doesn't just whisper, it screams, and it gives you a deadline. This is the story of the Crestview Apartments and the mother and daughter trapped within its walls. If you see them, your life becomes a living hell. For 4 days, you endure their torment. And on the fourth day, at the moment the sun dips below the horizon and the world is bathed in the blood-red light of dusk, you die, torn apart. What could make a mother and her child become something so vengeful? To understand that, we have to start with the first soul brave enough, or foolish enough, to break the one rule of the Crestview. Never, ever go to the 6th floor. Our story begins with a young woman named Megan. Megan pushed her grocery cart through the automatic doors of the Crestview lobby, the wheels squeaking a complaint on the polished linoleum. It had been another long day, and the drizzle of a Portsborough evening had seeped into her bones. All she wanted was to get upstairs to her apartment, Unit 510. Steam some of the broccoli in her bag and forget the world. But as she slid her key into the lock, she heard it, the relentless drip, 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 coming from her bathroom. Not again, she muttered, her shoulders slumping. She dropped her groceries on the kitchen counter and marched to the bathroom. Sure enough, a dark, ugly stain was spreading across the ceiling tile, and a steady trickle of water was pooling around the base of her toilet. This was the 3rd time in 2 months. Every time, the building managers, a seemingly friendly couple named Alan and Lena, would send a maintenance guy. He'd patch it up, mumble something about old pipes, and leave. And a week later, the dripping would start all over again. Frustration boiled over in Megan. This wasn't just an inconvenience, it was negligence. She was done complaining. If the water was coming from upstairs, she was going to find the source herself. She took the elevator to the 6th floor, her resolve hardening with each passing floor. But when the doors slid open, she was met with an unsettling sight. Unlike the well-lit, carpeted hallways of her own floor, the 6th floor was shrouded in gloom. The air was thick and stale, smelling of dust and decay. The floor was bare concrete, and the few overhead lights that weren't broken flickered weakly, casting long, dancing shadows. A heavy chain and a bright yellow, restricted access, condemned sign were strung across the hallway entrance. Megan hesitated for only a second. This is why the problem never gets fixed, she thought, a spark of defiance igniting within her. She unhooked the chain, letting it fall with a loud clatter that echoed in the cavernous silence. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she stepped onto the forbidden floor. It was freezing. Her breath misted in the air. Using the flashlight on her phone, she navigated the labyrinth of empty doorways, her footsteps echoing unnaturally loud. She was looking for Unit 610, the one directly above her bathroom. The door was unlocked. She pushed it open, and a wave of putrid, damp air hit her like a physical blow. It was the smell of standing water, of rot, of something long dead. "Hello," her voice was a timid whisper swallowed by the oppressive silence. She swept her phone's light around the empty living room. Dust motes danced in the beam. The floor was warped and water-stained. And then a sound. Not a drip, A voice, soft, clear, and coming from the bathroom. "Hello? Is someone out there?" Megan froze. Her blood ran cold. They said this floor was empty, condemned. I'm the tenant from downstairs," she stammered, taking a cautious step toward the bathroom door. "There's a leak." "Please," the voice replied. A woman's voice, calm and strangely inviting. "Come in. I'm Ms. K." Ms. K. Who the hell was Ms. K? Against every screaming instinct in her body, Megan pushed the bathroom door open. The scene inside would be burned into her mind forever. The bathtub was old, a claw-foot model stained with rust, and sitting in the dry tub was a little girl no more than 5 or 6, her knees pulled to her chest, and next to her, perched on the tub's edge, was a woman with long, dark hair and a hollow, grief-stricken face. They were both pale, almost translucent, and seemed to glow with a faint, sickly light. Megan's brain short-circuited. She couldn't process what she was seeing. The woman, Ms. K, looked directly at her. Her eyes were bottomless pools of sorrow and rage. When she spoke, her voice was no longer gentle. It was a chilling, resonant pronouncement that seemed to vibrate in Megan's very bones. 4 days until dusk. The words hung in the air, a death sentence spoken with ancient finality. Terror, pure and primal, seized Megan. She didn't scream, she didn't think, she just ran. She fled that bathroom, that apartment, that floor. Her own frantic breaths and pounding heart, the only sounds in the world. She didn't stop until she was back in 510, her back against her own front door, sliding to the floor as sobs of sheer, unadulterated panic racked her body. She told herself it was a prank. Squatters, it had to be, but deep down in a place she didn't want to acknowledge, she knew she had looked into the eyes of something that was no longer human, and it had given her a date with her own demise. 4 days later, the digital clock on Megan's bedside table glowed 7:45 p.m. Dusk was settling over Portsborough, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet. For Megan, these colors looked like blood. The last 4 days had been a waking nightmare. The moment she had fled the 6th floor, a profound, creeping dread had taken root in her soul. She felt watched constantly. In her apartment, on the street, especially in the bathroom, the sound of dripping water, even from her own faucet, would send her into a panic attack. Just the day before, she'd been taking a shower. The water was hot, steaming up the mirror, and for a fleeting second, she almost felt normal. Then, a hand icy cold and solid as stone had closed around her ankle from the drain below and yanked. She was pulled off her feet, her head set slamming against the tiled wall. Warm water filled her mouth and nose as she was dragged downward. She was drowning in her own bathtub. Just as her vision started to tunnel, the grip vanished. She erupted from the water, gasping and choking, scrambling out of the tub. The bathroom was empty. There was no hand, no explanation. She'd called her cousin, David, and begged him to come over. She'd tried to explain, her words tumbling out in a hysterical jumble about ghosts and curses and a countdown to dusk. David, a practical man, had listened with a growing look of concern, not for the building, but for her. "Meg, listen to yourself," he'd said, his voice gentle but firm. "You've been under so much stress, the leak, your job. It's your mind playing tricks on you. You're not sleeping. Did you take the anxiety meds the doctor prescribed?" He didn't believe her. Of course he didn't. He'd insisted on making her dinner, trying to ground her in something normal. As he clattered around in the kitchen, Megan felt the seconds ticking away like a bomb in her chest. Dusk was approaching, the 4th dusk. She retreated to her half bathroom off the hallway to splash water on her face. She looked terrible, pale with dark circles under her wild eyes. As she bent over the sink, she felt a sudden, freezing presence behind her. She could feel them, the woman and the child, standing right there. She spun around, her heart in her throat. Nothing. The bathroom was empty. Trembling, she turned back to the sink, her mind reeling. Was she really losing it? She leaned in closer to the mirror, peering at her own reflection, searching for some sign of the sanity she felt slipping away. And that's when she saw it. It wasn't her reflection. For a split second, the mirror showed not her own terrified face, but the bathroom behind her. And in that reflection, the mother and daughter were standing there, their faces contorted with otherworldly hatred. Their eyes were solid black. Megan screamed and whirled around, but the room was still empty. Then the faucet in the bathtub of her main bathroom, the one connected to her bedroom, blasted on by itself, a roaring torrent of water. It was time. She heard David call out from the kitchen, "Megan, you okay?" She couldn't answer. Her feet were rooted to the spot. She watched, paralyzed, as the shadows in the hallway began to writhe and twist. The air grew so cold she could see her breath again. And from the pooling water on the bathroom floor, 4 pale, glistening arms slowly emerged. Too large, too small. There were ghosts of Miss Kay and her daughter, rose from the wet floor, water streaming from their forms like liquid darkness. They stood between Megan and the living room, between her and any hope of escape. Megan finally found her voice. A raw, primal shriek tore from her lungs. David heard it and came running. "Megan!" He burst into the hallway and skidded to a halt, his mind refusing to process the scene before him. It wasn't a scene of a woman having a panic attack. It was a slaughterhouse. Megan's body lay in the center of the hallway, but it was no longer a body. It was a puzzle of flesh and bone, torn into pieces. The walls, the ceiling, the carpet, everything was painted in a grisly shade of red. The metallic smell of blood filled the air. David didn't scream. He just stood there, his mind shattering into a million pieces. The last coherent thought he had was of the words he heard Megan whispering over and over, 4 days until dusk. He would never form a coherent thought again. 1 month later, life, as it always does, had moved on in Portsborough. The official report called Megan's death a tragic, unsolved homicide, a random, brutal act of violence. The case grew cold. Across town, in a small, struggling diner called The Griddle, a woman named Sarah was trying to hold her world together. Her mother's long illness had ended in a soul-crushing funeral just weeks before, leaving Sarah and her younger sister, Mia, alone and drowning in medical debt. The diner was failing. She'd already had to cut her staff's hours to the bone. "Sarah, I'm sorry to bring this up," said Chloe, one of her waitresses, wringing her hands, "but rent is due and my kid, I just really need my full paycheck this week." Sarah felt a fresh wave of guilt and pressure. "I know, Chloe. I'm trying. I promise. I'm trying." Just then, her phone rang. It was her boyfriend, Ryan. "Hey," he said, his voice tense. "You sitting down?" "I don't have time to sit, Ryan. What's going on?" "I just got my transfer orders. The company needs me in Portsborough for 3 months, a big project. It could lead to a promotion, Sarah. A real one. Enough to get us that house. I want you and Mia to come with me." Sarah's head spun. Portsborough? It was their old hometown, a place filled with complicated memories. "Ryan, I can't just pick up and leave. The diner, Mum's bills." "The diner is dying, Sarah, and you know it," Ryan said, his voice gentle but firm. "Let it go. Mia needs stability right now. You need it. I can't force you, but I can't stand the thought of you two struggling out there alone. Please, just think about it. He was right, and she hated it. Later, as she scoured the job listings in the Portsborough Herald, out of sheer desperation, one ad jumped out at her. Live-in manager wanted, the Crestview Apartments, competitive salary plus luxury apartment included. Apply in person. It seemed too good to be true. The salary was more than she'd ever made. It would solve their housing problem, and then some. She told Ryan about it, her voice buzzing with a fragile hope. Ryan grew quiet on the other end of the line. The Crestview? Sarah? No, that's the building where that girl was murdered a month ago, the one they never caught the killer for. It's not safe. Ryan, we're not safe. Here, Sarah shot back, the weight of her exhaustion making her sharp. I'm drowning. This is a lifeline. I'm handling that case, Ryan said, his voice dropping into his professional detective tone. It's messy. I don't like it. But Sarah's mind was made up. Desperation overruled caution. We're going, Ryan. You can't stop us. A week later, Sarah's beat-up sedan pulled up in front of the Crestview Apartments. The building was a grand Art Deco structure that had seen better days, standing like a gloomy sentinel against the grey Portsborough sky. Ryan was waiting for them on the sidewalk, his face a mask of worry. Mia, ever the optimist, was excited to be back in her childhood city, chattering about re-enrolling in her dance classes. The building managers, Alan and Lena, were a picture of polished charm. They welcomed Sarah and Mia with open arms, showing them to a beautiful, fully furnished apartment on the 5th floor. As you can see, the Crestview is a bit of a hidden gem, Alan said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. 12 stories, but we only occupy floors 1 through 5. 6 through 12 are under renovation. Sarah's eyes drifted to a fire alarm panel on the wall. Next to the switch for the 6th floor, someone had slapped a handwritten sticker that read, "Do not enter ever." Lena followed her gaze and gave a light, airy laugh that sounded forced. Oh, that? The 6th floor is just in terrible shape. Water damage, structural issues. It's completely sealed off for everyone's safety. Once Alan and Lena had left, promising to return the next day, Ryan pulled Sarah aside, his voice low and serious. Sarah, listen to me. I wasn't entirely straight with you. That girl, Megan, wasn't just murdered. It was a scene I can't even describe, and it wasn't the first. There were deaths here 4 years ago, too. Same building. I'm deep in this investigation. If you feel anything weird, you call me. Immediately. Promise me. Sarah nodded, but her mind was on the mountain of debt she'd just lifted from her shoulders. How bad could it be? Later that night, as Mia unpacked a faded photograph of their parents, Sarah felt a pang of old bitterness. I still can't believe he just left us, she murmured, staring at her father's smiling face. Mom always said something changed in him, Mia said softly, that it wasn't really him when he walked out. She thought maybe the house was cursed or something. She brought in a psychic. Sarah snorted. A psychic? Mum was grieving Mia. Dad was just a liar. It's why she was so terrified of history repeating itself. Little did she know she had just walked into the heart of a history that was far more vicious and far more literal than she could ever imagine. The countdown for Sarah and Mia had not yet begun, but upstairs on the silent, sealed 6th floor, in the water-damoured bathroom of Unit 610, a presence stirred. It had felt new souls enter its domain. It was patient. It had all the time in the world. After all, their 4 days would start soon enough. If you're feeling that chill down your spine, you're not alone. This story is based on real life claims, and we're just getting started. Uh, Hit that like button to let me know you're with me, because in part two, the curse turns its eyes directly on Sarah and Mia. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next.